Toby,
Hi.
thanks for coming in for a chat. We were just having a really good chat there, and I thought that we would want to share it with our community. So we were talking about creating versus consuming technology, right?
Yeah.
But from a family perspective, so start with telling me more about what is family to you, who are family to you.
Right, so yeah, I think for me, family has like two aspects. On the one hand, it's my family of origin,
right,
and then the family I made.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in all honesty, I think with my family of origin, I'm just starting to get on a amicable level.
Right.
So I mean, when I was a kid, I really thought, okay, everything was like amazing, and I had a great upbringing. Then I think by the time I started having my own family, and yeah, I realized it just brought back a lot of issues that I was sort of like unaware. And so yeah, I am having basically a broken family clone, like sort of the family that I made.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we split up like a year ago, and so now I am kind of a single dad for 50% of the time. So I think the interesting bit there is that I realized I've never really taken my parenting responsibility until I had to do it all by myself. Okay. So I felt I was really parenting from a point of taking the lead of my partner in some way.
Right.
And now, only after having split up and being all by myself and needing to put structures in place and nurture my children, I feel I've actually just grown into this role of what a parent needs to do, and that a parent needs to look after themselves in order to then be able to extend that nurturing, loving nature to their kids. And this is where then, coming to my sort of family of origin, I feel these clear boundaries between the role of parents and then the role of kids, they just were never in place. It was this like complete enmeshed thing. And so I think it just placed a lot of responsibility upon me as a kid to make my parents feel good about themselves. And now being a parent myself, I don't want to put my kids into this situation, because I realized in the end, they don't belong to me. I mean, they are a product of love, but they're like their own people. You know, they're their own little, I don't know, like masses of cells that behave in certain ways, which are totally different from me. You know, so I am just sort of endowed, I guess, with the task to nurture them to the best of my ability. And so I think it's really this transformational process. For, on the one hand, I think probably more for my own benefit than for theirs, you know.
But it follows on that it will be beneficial for them too, if it's benefited you.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, in many ways, I guess it benefits them that I am able to, you know, provide like a safe and secure environment. But I really have to say, I think kids, they're just very pure, and they're really, I think what I admire about it is just their level of authenticity. And this is super cool.
Tell me more about that. Give me some examples.
I mean, for example, Max, he's such a strong-willed kiddo, you know? And what I admire is that I do kind of like clash with him, because at points he tries to push my boundaries like so much, you know? And so I feel like, what is my sort of authentic self? And where do I allow him to, you know, get something, and where in other ways do I just need to stand my ground and say, this is just not what I believe in, and I will not engage in that. And so, I think it just teaches me a lot. Also, like how to express their emotions. For myself, I've been quite, I think, sort of maybe like underdeveloped, you know, and in terms of being able to name what I feel and express appropriately what I feel. And then, I mean, seeing them be like totally loving or being like totally frustrated. it's
They
been
know
really,
it.
really nice. So just maybe a few months back, I just felt really angry. I felt like, this is amazing. I haven't felt anger in so long.
So you felt it and you could name it.
Yes, I felt it. I could name it, and I could actually channel it into something productive. And I think this is the beauty, and this is sort of, I guess, where then my role as a parent is important again, to help them in identifying what they feel, and then be able to channel it into a productive sort of behavior, rather than, I mean, I could be angry and feel like, oh, I just want to destroy something. Or I could be angry and turn on some like music and clean the kitchen. And it's basically the same energy, but one outcome is just, I have an environment that actually gives me headspace and allows me to feel, man, I have a beautiful home. Or the other thing at the end, I would feel, oh, fuck, now I need to pick all this up, you know? And so I guess this is where, you know, my role as a parent is to teach that, yes, feel this, but then you have a choice to go route A or route B, and there will be consequences or results at the end of each.
Absolutely. So I think something that you touched on there was taking care of yourself then also helped you in parenting. And we have just, obviously it's January, a lot of people are making New Year's resolutions. But tell me more about your phone and what you do with it during the day during work.
So I started this last year. I mean, there's a few things with my phone. On the one hand, I have it always on non-disturb. Unless I expect an urgent call, which is hardly ever. So then there's no like background, it's just a black background, which has obviously, well, I heard it has like two benefits. On one hand, it saves battery, so I only need to charge it like every 2 days. Yes. And then the other thing is that I just put it in my drawer. So when I'm at work, I put it in my drawer. Experienced just creates these long stretches of focus. And, you know, I mean, usually I had it sitting next to me, and then there were moments when I just felt the task was burdensome, and then it was like, okay, what is a nice instant gratification? Let's just press on this little button and see if somebody texted me. And I mean, then in the end, you know, there's moments when somebody texted me and it feels good, but sometimes text is annoying. So basically, what I felt I was doing, I was just inviting all this, I don't know, emotional turmoil. Whether it's like upwards or downwards, you know, basically I'm having no control over what people are saying to me. And so I realized that I want to live a life of focus. And one of the sort of disciplinary measures I've taken for myself is to kind of detach from my phone. And I mean, I've been with my kids sometimes to the playground and just left my phone at home.
How does that feel?
It feels great, actually. I mean, it feels a little like odd in the beginning, but I think it's definitely this process of, you know, taking certain kind of like small steps. I mean, one thing is doing non-disturb. The other thing is then I had, instead of having it face up, I put it face down and wrote something on the back, which I felt was like inspiring. And I think the next step was putting in a drawer. Then there were these things of leaving it at the house, because I noticed one of these. Basically, I guess what my phone has helped me to do is escape unpleasant momentary experiences. And so what I wanted to do is to just experience this unpleasant momentary experience. And I mean, sometimes it's
like lean in.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes with my kids, when we're on a play, I'm like, Papa, we want to play this, and I'm like, I don't want to, man. We have played this for like the last half hour, and I am just tired.
Just one more time.
You know, and then I would have maybe like checked my phone or something. And so when I don't have it, then I just got the experiences, and I think it helps me to just communicate in a better way with my kids and say, dude, to be honest, man, I'm really feeling tired. Give me like 5 minutes, and then we'll play it one more time and maybe go home. So yeah, I think it puts me more in the moment. So I basically deprive myself of the opportunity to escape.
And what has you having had that conversation then taught your kids? Because you said to them.
I mean, it teaches them ultimately there's a boundary. You know, like my dad is just a human being like me. And I mean, it's actually quite nice because ever since I think I've developed these. My New Year's resolution is for this year. It's all about, I think, discipline and really getting to a point where, you know, I hold myself accountable for things that I do. quite sort of a change from having been in a relationship where I always followed someone's lead
Right.
to now really leading myself, basically, you know? And so
discipline to what end? Like, why?
Why? Because I'm very effective. I'm disciplined. And I'm just so much better of a human being. You know, I mean, one thing with discipline is just go to bed at the same time, roughly each day. Wake up at 6 in the morning, you know, and then get 8 hours of sleep. I mean, I guess when we first had kids, I mean, obviously it's not there all the time.
Yeah.
You want to be breastfed, you want to be held, you want to be put in a like pram and driven around in the middle of the night. And it's, and I mean, it's again, it's just conditioning, you know, it's just years. I mean, we had 2 kids in the span of like 18 months. So basically, one kid was just getting to some sort of normality. It just ramped up like the whole chaos. And yeah, so I mean, I think I've lived in sort of like sleep deprived chaos for maybe 3 years. And then so, yeah, I mean, it definitely created habits of, well, go to bed only after everything is done. But then it basically draws out the evening because at some point, just sort of the focus and energy to do stuff is just so low.
Right.
And then, I mean, I realized I just engaged in all sorts of like, I mean, self-destructive in some way. I mean, yeah, definitely, like behaviors.
Yeah.
And so now being able to say, I look after myself, which is actually loving who I am in some way, which is another thing that I'm learning through my kids.
Right.
To, yeah, basically kind of like parent myself in similar ways as
How hard is it to do that?
It's quite challenging, but I have to say it is probably the most rewarding thing I can do. And it's really, yeah, coming back to kind of the kind of like phone conversation and sort of the discipline there, because it basically allows me, so I'm basically setting limits with myself, which then also allows me to be able to set limits with other people. And then by being in a place where I can look after myself and say, those are the things that I value, and those are the things that I, you know, would like to do more of. Then being really mindful of, I only have, I don't know, basically 16 hours each day.
Yeah.
And then I need to pick and choose what are the things I want to do. And then in that and I think that it is something that, I mean, people often say, you know, if your glass is full, then you're able to share. And I mean, this is all these like intellectual concepts. Or put your whatever oxygen mask on first in the plane before you have the kids. And I mean, it's like cliche and whatever it may sound. I think it's really, at least for me, it definitely works. You know, being able to value who I am as a human being enables me to value them for who they are. Because I guess it's this sort of play on acceptance, you know. I accept myself in sort of my beauty and capabilities, but also in the little monster that I have, you know. And I talked to Max and Louis about it the other day, that, you know, if you push my boundaries too much, then this monster, which is like small and tiny and cute, will suddenly, you know, blow up in size.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the same with them.
Yeah.
If they are pushing each other's boundaries, then their monsters blow up.
Yeah.
You know, and so then I think sort of the next thing that we're doing is to talk about how to kind of like tame these monsters and then basically make them into horses in front of sort of our carriage, you know? And yeah, I think it's another area sort of these monsters where, and kind of the separateness of them and me, you know, it's not my responsibility to control them or control their behavior.
Right.
But all I can do is to try to facilitate and help them as much to control their own behavior and manage their emotions. And I mean, this is, I guess, where, again, they teach me in the first place. Or I mean, they teach me like, Papa, there's something that you're not good at yet. And you need to basically figure that out in order to be, like, and I mean, it's basically developing myself into the parent that they need instead of being the parent that I would want to be.
Okay.
So I think I would want to be a totally lenient laissez-faire parent, and it wouldn't work. There's like no benefit for anyone.
Right.
So.
Did you know beforehand that putting yourself first would feel better, or did you have to do it to believe it?
I think a bit of both maybe. And I mean I think the tricky bit is that basically it's again, your family of origin and the family you create. And yeah, I mean, I am sort of the vital pivot point between these two. And I mean, if you have once your own family, then you'll be sort of the vital pivot point right there. But I think what you would do unconsciously is to take all the patterns and all the blah that we've gotten and know, okay, this is how you do a family. And copy paste. And I mean, obviously, luckily there's two new people that come together.
Right.
And I think that really has helped me to kind of break away from sort of dysfunctional patterns. Because a sentence that was often said in my family is, if everyone looks after themselves, everybody's taken care of. And I mean, it's a beautiful sentence, but the way they said it was always in a very guilt-tripping, shameful way, dude, you really need to look after people, like, don't be so freaking selfish.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that really stuck with me. And so in the end, it was this notion that, don't be selfish. Just put everybody else before you all the time. But then what it does to me is I'm amazingly resentful. I'm getting like really, because I feel that there is this obligation, I need to be nice and all these things. Even if I don't want to, or if I don't have the energy or all these things. And it's basically all about denying my own needs, and so now doing things for myself and putting these needs first. I got my snowboard, which I last used when I was kind of like maybe 18, 19.
Amazing.
And it was so cool. We unpacked it and Max and Louis were like, oh, this is awesome. Put me in these boots. And so I put Louis in these boots or Max in this boots. And I like lifted her up and turned them like 80 degrees or so. And I put them on myself and I did these few jumps. It was just great. I
Having
felt
fun.
Yeah, exactly. This is the thing, I'm really, and this is the beauty of having kids. I think it enables me to. What means enables me? But what I'm seeing is because I don't want them to just engage with tech all the time. Because in their lives they will be surrounded by tech.
They'll have
like
plenty of opportunity.
They'll be like 120 years old. They have like their whole life with tech ahead. So I basically want them to just get out, engage with natural environments, with things that will always be there. Sort of. They'll always slowly change, but in mountains they will, for the most part, remain.
Right.
And yeah, so then having these hobbies of like mountain biking and snowboarding, and so it's really cool. And I guess technology is quite interesting in that regard as well, because it enables me to show them, for example, videos of Danny McGaskill and doing cool tricks.
Cool to do their work.
Exactly, yeah. I'm going to print them and put them on my wall.
Oh my goodness. But thank goodness for YouTube, right?
Yeah, so in some ways, technology just is really amazing, because as we spoke about earlier, where it enables this feeling of, even if you have like the weirdest interest, there's always someone who has this weird interest as well. And so I guess it makes people feel like less isolated in some way. And yeah, it also makes it possible for me to show maximally this is what you can do with a mountain bike.
Right.
And it's gonna be really cool. And yeah, it's just beautiful to have them talk about it and say like, Papa, next year we gotta buy a bike together and then we do these things. Yeah, exactly.
Even the outtakes, right? So Danny McCaskill, at the end, it showed you how many times he has to practice every single trick.
Yeah.
And there's a lesson in that too.
Teaching about failure. And that you've gotta, and it's actually nice because we speak about this a lot in terms of how I praise them. So, valuing the effort rather than the outcome.
Okay.
Or when Max and Louis fall. And it's sometimes really cool to hear them when Louis fell and Max like, man, it doesn't matter, you just get up and you do it again. And then I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is kind of what you, I think, said earlier with sort of your community, when people suddenly start speaking in sort of the language that you've used, or conveying the same sort of value principles, which is, I think this is one of the very rewarding bits of parenting. When you feel that you've passed on like an attitude that's healthy and it will enable them to grow and, deal with setbacks.
That's really good to unpick there some of the positives in consuming technology, because we were speaking beforehand about consuming versus creating. There's obviously a benefit to consuming if you're consuming it in an educational manner and you're experiencing something. But talk to me more about creating. Why is helping your kids learning how to create through technology important to you?
So I feel for me the importance is in many ways, because if I just read other people's ideas basically, then what are the ideas of myself, And so, I mean, one habit that I'm having, for example, is that every morning I just wake up, make some coffee, and sit down and write a few pages in my journal. And ever since I started this, I'm noticing that I just feel a lot more in tune with who I am. And I feel a lot more empowered in just going out into the world and saying, this is me, you like me or not. It doesn't really matter because I already like myself.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's just +1 basically. And so I guess the bit with consuming and creating for me is then I want them to be able to have these learnings, because I mean, if I just read or if I just consume videos, there's absolutely I don't learn anything from that. I don't learn how to deal with failure. All I learn is basically that there is a certain level of perfection that, others seem to create all the time. But I don't understand that they have probably gone through a process where they, as we just said with Danny Megasol, where he failed, 100 times.
Yeah, I love that he's come, key in this conversation. That's amazing. We should tweet it. Danny, we spoke about you today.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we will.
So basically I think what I want them to learn is with technology that, because I mean, as Steve Jobs was saying, whatever, it's the bicycle for the mind.
Right.
Again, bicycle reference here. No, but I think what the beauty in this is that,
So yeah, what do you mean by that?
It will enable people to do things that they weren't able to do before. For example, I can create beautiful graphics, which I wouldn't have been able to do if I wouldn't have Adobe Creative Suite or something. And so for Max and Louis, I want them to be able to understand these tools. As a kid, I used kind of handicraft tools in my dad's garage.
Yeah.
And it's cool because Max, he got from my parents, they sent him some electronics thing and a hammer. And it was amazing to see how he was like, this is so cool. There's this little metal hammer, and then the next morning we woke up at 6. Usually I need at least half an hour to, get in tune with the day.
Be a human.
And he was like, Papa, we want a hammer. And you and I live in a shared flat at the moment, and so it's 6 o'clock, man. Our roommates are saying, you can't hammer. And then so we kind of got to the compromise that maybe we just screw in the screw.
Mm-hmm.
And then he brought all this electronic stuff, and we built a little thing, a little circuit with a little lamp. And so it was beautiful to see kind of the excitement of we've done something, and we've kind of changed the world.
Was it about the process or the outcome? What?
I think what was exciting for me was to see his excitement. And I think the really interesting bit is that he's wanting to develop something, and then he was talking to me about, I really want to be a builder, or I maybe want to be on a farm. And on the other hand, kind of on the whole creation bit, is that maybe for a period of 2 months or so, he's been really into kind of drawing. And so just seeing the progress, from weekend to weekend to weekend to weekend, and how he's been able to not write anything, to even write letters and numbers, and sort of the complexity of his monsters. It's really just cool to see, because I noticed, if he's spending time practicing, this is where he'll develop capabilities. You know, he had more goals at something, and that's why he's better at doing it.
Right.
And so that's what I want. I don't want him to get addicted to social media things, where in the end it's about consuming someone else's life and then feeling miserable about oneself. But I want him to, and not just him, I mean, Louis he's just not as far in sort of his development, even though when I would compare them at the same age, I mean, Louis is definitely further along because he just has this big brother to emulate.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, I really want them to have just kind of the entitlement to just know that they are worthy to create whatever with the universe, basically. Like, and I mean, this is I think the thing, you know, because only I think through creation, at least for me, I'm able to put things from my head into the world, and by doing this, I create space for new things to emerge.
Right.
And so this is, I think, the only thing where I'm actually able to really learn anything, you know. And then, I mean, all in all, I think there's it's almost like a tide, you know. I think I need times to create, but then I also, I mean, I do read a lot actually.
Right.
So it's sort of.
So some of those ideas that are worth reading, right?
Yes, exactly. And I mean, this is like really cool because basically someone has created something, and then, you know, it's upon your or my responsibility to basically curate for ourselves. What do we want to, you know, like download basically into our own thing, and then you know, like synthesize again. And it's a creative process. I mean, I read something right after I get out of bed, and then sort of when I start journaling, there's some sort of idea, which then, you know, ties in with my previous day's experience, and I'm suddenly able to like move one step further in my development of opinions and my sort of development of curiosity and who I actually am, and in my sort of like exploration of my personal being, and then being able to be a good role model. And a role model, it's working on being, I know, self-confident and grounded in the world just as I am, rather than thinking I need to be in a certain way in order to be accepted by the world. Which I think social media, I mean, definitely, but when I was on Facebook, I had so many friends around the world because I had studied in tons of different places. And I felt like, dude, it's gonna be great if I go to Australia, I have someone to sleep on somebody's couch. But then, kind of when I got rid of Facebook, you know, none of these friends actually remain. So it's just this complete illusion of a community that never existed in the first place. Only as long as we were, I don't know, locally in kind of.
Well, it goes back to our talking about authenticity and shared connection and what you really are when you're giving up yourself, right?
Yeah.
And whether social media can enable that, or if in most scenarios that's not the case.
I think it just sort of like inhibits it a lot. And yeah, I think one interesting bit is there that, you know, if I want to really make a connection with someone, just kind of like the physical touch, like the handshake or hugging someone, it just creates this notion of trust that, I mean, obviously with on-screen communication is impossible to be recreated. And yeah, I think this is, I think one of the major areas where I think sort of social media interaction will never ever be able to substitute what real human connection is. And I mean, I noticed this because when we had our kids, you know, we had just moved to Norway and my partner had been pregnant at the time. And 6 weeks after we had moved in, Max was born, and then being in this complete kind of like parenting turmoil and trying to figure out what's going on and being like sleep deprived and going to university and having all these new responsibilities. I didn't really have time to make friends. I didn't really have time to create any meaningful network. So basically what happened was that we were just alone. You know, we were a couple with a kid.
Yeah.
Really, really isolated. And then, yeah, within this isolation and this a lack of being able to talk to someone else than my partner.
Yeah.
But then having, stressors of not knowing what parenting is like, massive uncertainty there. Great uncertainty in terms of economic survival, in terms of how will my semesters pan out. I had this idea of studying abroad, which was always meeting people and having this amazingly, even maybe just 6 months sort of short-term, high-intensity friendships.
Super philosophical discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then just nothing happened like that. It was just the grind of just being up all night with kids and then drinking way too much coffee. And yeah, so I felt just really, really isolated. And I just created like a whole host of like coping mechanisms, which just made me even more isolated and shameful. And
sometimes our coping mechanisms help, and sometimes, like you were talking earlier, sometimes we go self-destructive. Like, what is this? A coping mechanism? And digging myself a deeper hole.
Exactly, yeah. And then just like to cope more. And
right.
in the end, I think this is another area.
Or is it to not feel more? Like,
yeah, basically I just like cut myself off from feeling, I cut myself off from, basically with every coping thing, the pain has gotten worse.
Yeah.
And so what I'm realizing is that that's some wisdom that I would like to impart to my kids as well. Is that just feel the pain. This is the only thing that will actually teach you something. And yeah, I'm also realizing that it's always sort of very lonely, sort of at the edges of growth. And so I think this period of actually turning from whatever person you've been before to being a parent is one of these amazing, beautiful opportunities for growth, which will make you very, very lonely.
Super uncomfortable.
And very uncomfortable. So I kind of forgot a bit the original question that you asked.
That's okay. I don't know where we went down. I guess to wrap up our very divergent but super interesting discussion, I think a lot of people will be able to listen to this and they'll be able to empathize with parts of it. They'll be able to see your complete authenticity and ability to share, which has been fabulous. I think something that if people are saying, I can get up 6 every morning and journal, and it just sounds so disciplined that I'm way too far from that. I'm too far from that. I wonder if maybe what would you think of the starting point, just of the fact that you said if your phone was out, you had the realization of what that feeling was, of that I need to be doing this task, but it's like calling to me, like I need to pick it up, this voice in your head. What would you say the first steps could be for someone who they're starting to recognize the negative effects that technology are having on them?
I think maybe even just having airplane mode at night and then keep it until you leave the house. Because then you are basically left with yourself and the people in your house until you leave.
Yeah.
And even maybe reshaping the relationships, as I'm trying to use my phone primarily to set up times to meet people face to face, which I think I'm getting more quality out of 60 minutes I spent with them face to face than having this very segmented throughout the course of the day things back and forth. So, and it's been definitely a journey for me. It's a lot of like small steps, and but I think one of the sort of most radical things was to just do a 90-day, but not from my phone, but from like different behaviors, just 90-day, just don't do it.
Yeah.
And really, I think what really helps and has helped me in that bit was to have people that I was sort of accountable to. And so if I was running in a situation where I felt like I would like to engage in a behavior that I committed to myself I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
To just send them a text. And then again, digital communication is again beautiful because it mindfully applied helps us to definitely be better humans.
That's the key though, right?
Exactly.
So if we're choosing to use that.
Yeah. And have a sort of objective why we do it rather than, and I guess it's just, the relationship, is it our master or or be the masters of it.
Right.
And so I think this is sort of the zest that I want my kids to master technology
Makes
and
sense.
not have them be mastered by it. So
On that note, I think we'll finish there and we'll get texting Danny McCaskill or tweeting Danny McCaskill.
yeah.